This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for another baseball topic this week. It feels like forever since I know it's only been a week, but it's felt like forever since we talked baseball and talked Yu Darvish just a week ago. But we got a special guest in. I'm going to introduce Pat, our loyal patron, in a second. However, got to get through the housekeepings that we got real quickly. Just if you're on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. MVP.com, well, mostvaluablepodcast.com. That's where you find all of MVP every single day. You can see our link to our store down below in the description. Then last but not least, if you want to be like Pat and be on a podcast in the future, then you go ahead and check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. I think that's the quickest I've ever gotten through the housekeeping, and it's all because I wanted to get to the main point. I want to welcome in Pat, like I said, loyal patron. Pat, how you doing today?
I'm good. I've been up since 6, but I'm pretty good. I'm pumped to talk baseball since it's spring training now, and I'm super pumped baseball season's starting.
Did you just say up since 6?
Yeah.
I will say I do not envy you, because I remember those days when I used to have to wake up before 6, and it was not the best thing in the world. But like you said, we're talking baseball today, and what we're looking at is kind of a general overview of the baseball offseason so far. We've got a few signings, a few guys landed today. However, the big ones that went down were Hosmer, JD Martinez today, Yu Darvish last week. However, it's been a little bit slower than we're used to in MLB offseason. And I'll just kick it to you. The one thing is, since it's been slower, is this good or is this bad for the baseball season moving forward?
Personally, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's going to be bad for the players because obviously they want a job and they want to play baseball this season, and it helps if they've known that for a little bit. But I don't think it affects the season badly so far. I think it can be good because I think it gives teams more of a chance to go through spring training, have free agency available, and have a lot of position players available. And if someone goes down, they can easily go okay, we have another option. This guy's still on the free agent market. We can go pick him up. So I think for team-wise, and I think for fans, I think this is still a good thing for them because they're able to get these guys at more of a reduced price, as we've seen this offseason with JD Martinez and Eric Hosmer. But obviously for the players, it's not going to be good because they're seeing their value go down. They're not getting paid like they want to be. And so for them, it's a bad thing. But I think for baseball, it's not truly affected. So team-wise and fan-wise, they shouldn't be feeling too bad about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a terrible thing. I think from a fan's perspective, it's been boring. It's been boring because a lot of times you get your splashes right at the beginning, and then you'll have a couple more signings come and trickle in middle of the offseason or towards the end of the offseason. I don't remember this many big-name guys being signed this close to the season starting in the past. So it's interesting how it's worked out this offseason. But I think from kind of that fan perspective, it's almost if you're a Padres fan, you almost forget that, the offseason's still going and you still had a chance at Eric Hosmer because it just kind of was out. It was out there. An offer had been made. An offer, I think, was actually on the table for a number of weeks from both the Padres and the Kansas City Royals. But of course, plenty of time to mull that over, think it over, talk to your agent. But overall, I don't think it's probably a terrible thing. However, if I'm a player, I want to be on my team, whatever team I'm going to be on, as soon as I can be, so I can get into the clubhouse, so I can, get to know the guys if I don't already, so I can really just get involved there and then get right down to business. I think that's if I'm a player, that's what I want to do. So if you're a Hosmer, if you're a Martinez, you're working out on your own, but, everyone's starting to report, position players just reporting, I think today, that's something that you want to get to and be a part of as quickly as you possibly can, especially if you're going to be the new guy on the block.
Well, and the thing that I think about is, I think I heard this on ESPN Radio, Waddle and Sylvie here in Chicago, and it was an interesting thing that I never thought of, where if you just go down the free agent tracker for most websites, you've got guys like Jake Arrieta, 31 years old. You've got guys like, I know we talk about Cobb and Lynn are 30 as well, but like Logan Morrison in his 30s, Luke Roy, 30, Greg Holland, 32, Carlos Gomez, 32, Neil Walker, 32. What you're seeing is they were saying because most rosters, it's like, okay, how do you win? How do you get to the World Series? Well, look at like teams like, I can speak from the Cubs. Let's go with young talent. Let's get that young talent, build that farm team. Look at, I mean, the Yankees, they kind of trade for Giancarlo Stanton. That's not really going the youngest, but because of all the young talent that's in the league right now, we're seeing older guys, especially, I know one name they threw out there was Jose Bautista, where it's like, he's a guy that can contribute on a team, but might be overlooked in the offseason because of all the young talent that you have on a team. So for me, I don't think it's going to be bad for the major league season, but it's different not to have like, because usually at the winter meetings, don't we have like here's the blockbuster thing, and the only blockbuster thing was, hey, let's talk about Derek Jeter because he traded Giancarlo Stanton and then didn't want to answer questions at the winter meeting. So I'm going to ask you, Pat, what kind of, if you had to say what was the best free agent signing or the biggest one that we've had this offseason, what would you say it is up to this date?
I got to say, because of like I got to say, even though I'm a Cubs fan, so I might be biased, I got to say Yu Darvish, because I think that Yu Darvish was probably the most intriguing option of the offseason. I think a lot of teams are interested in him. The Dodgers were interested in bringing him back. Texas was interested. The Twins, the Brewers, the Cubs. So I think that whole scenario of like, oh, where is he going to go because he can really shore up somebody's rotation, I think that was the most intriguing thing to watch. And I think that was the biggest one to watch, because when coming to the Cubs, you shore up that rotation. You got 5 quality starters in there, at least in my view. So I think that signing was the biggest one. And I can't really tell yet, because with J.D. Martinez and Eric Hosmer, those guys are great players, but they're not franchise-altering contracts or franchise-altering players. You know, the Red Sox needed a power hitter. That's why they got J.D. Martinez. And San Diego needed a first baseman, and they wanted to switch Will Myers back to left. So I can understand those deals, but they're not going to substantially change a face of a franchise. The one that I thought was the biggest of the offseason was Giancarlo Stanton, but he wasn't a free agent. That was a trade. So if I had to pick one, it would be Yu Darvish. That would be my pick for that.
And Pat, I'm actually going to have to go and disagree with you, because I think that Eric Hosmer and J.D. Martinez are both franchise-altering players. With Eric Hosmer, you look at what he did for the Kansas City Royals, and why Royals fans are so sad now and love him so much is because, I mean, he was a huge part to their ride to both World Series appearances that they were in, the one against San Francisco where they ended up losing, and then of course the one that they ended up winning. What was it? Just the year after, or 2 years? I can't remember, but it was. I mean, he was a big part of that. Everyone was a big part of that. But having Eric Hosmer was huge. Having Eric Hosmer for the regular season, what he was able to do, the plays he was able to make. I mean, that's a guy, you take him over to the Padres, a team that no one expects them to compete this year. They probably won't compete next year. They may not compete for another couple of years. But when they bring up their talent, which they do have one of the best farm systems in baseball, having a guy like Eric Hosmer on the team is going to be huge, to have him around to help these young guys, and to already have someone who's so solid on their team. I think that he could really be very helpful in helping to get them where they need to be. And then J.D. Martinez, a guy who broke out for the Tigers in 2014, he made that Tiger club so much better. As a White Sox fan, let me tell you, it stunk, because, I mean, he would kill us all the time. And now going to the Red Sox, the team that was last in the American League in home runs, and J.D. Martinez hit 45 of them last year. He's going to be able to come, and he's going to be able to fill a role and a void that was left by Big Papi a couple of years back. And the Red Sox weren't able to find it last year, and they didn't have it. So J.D. Martinez, he comes in, and he's going to be slotted into the middle of that lineup where I think he's really going to have a huge impact, even if he's half as good as what he was last year. Let's take, 25 home runs then. He's still bringing a whole lot to that club, and I think that's why I would look at, honestly, J.D. Martinez as the biggest signing to this point, because he's one of those players that was so good last year. And when he went to the Diamondbacks, he was even better than that. The Red Sox being able to get him and acquire him and go to a team that won the AL East last year, that knew they were going to need a splash like this after what the Yankees did. And the Yankees were already good last season. We saw that. We saw where they ended up in the playoffs. They were about a player or so away. They get Stanton. They're in a spot that they really want to be. The Red Sox as well, a player or so away. They get Martinez. Now it's going to be a race between the Yankees and the Red Sox in the East and in the American League.
I'm going to go a little bit different than you guys. And before I do that, the one thing I want to ask you guys, and we'll go to Pat first with this, and this is just my own brain spitballing here, is were you at all baffled, either of you guys, that Eric Hosmer wanted to go from the Royals to a team like the Padres? And I know, Brandon, when you were talking, I'm going, now I can't bash on a team for having a good farm system, because my team did that. Build up that farm system with Theo, and then it's just all of a sudden, boom, that young talent clicks, and look at what it can become. But as a guy who, and I know he's 28, so he's sitting there where it's like, okay, I'm not over the hill of baseball, and I'm kind of still in my prime right now. Do you want to be on a team that last year finished 33 games out of first place in their division, finished 16 games out of a wild card game, and sit there for maybe 2, maybe 3 years before you're competing for that wild card, for that playoff spot? Pat, I'll go to you first. Did it baffle you that Hosmer wanted to go to the San Diego Padres?
Honestly, it didn't baffle me so much, because although you mentioned that the Padres aren't that great and they're pretty far back in their own division, the Royals were on, even though they had won a World Series in 2015, they were on the track down. They were losing everybody. They were losing Kane. They were losing Hosmer, Moustakas, Escobar, I think, as well. And so I don't think it as much as like wanting to go to San Diego is the shocking part. It was might have been a little bit shocking, but I get his wanting to leave Kansas City, because there just wasn't anything there anymore. They tried that last year. They held on to all their guys and said, we're trying to make one more run, and they only finished 80 and 82. They finished 22 games back of the Indians in that division. So, and I think also with Hosmer, I think he was waiting for other teams to call him and say, like, hey, do you want to come to I remember reading an article saying that he was shocked that the Red Sox didn't call him and offer him a contract. Mm-hmm. So I think not as shocking that he would want to go to San Diego, but I think he just needed to get away from the Kansas City situation, which wasn't going anywhere even with him back on that team.
Well, and I completely agree there. What about you, B?
I agree completely as well. I mean, the Royals GM Dayton Moore even came out and said that we're going in a different direction, where we're going to be rebuilding. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times players don't necessarily want to be part of that rebuilding process. However, Hosmer's going from one beginning rebuilding process to another in the middle of a rebuilding process. So it's still interesting that he leaves the Royals, which, Pat, I completely agree with you. The Royals, I mean, they're losing everyone. They're not going to be bringing Moustakas back. They lost Kane already. Dyson's not coming back. He was just signed today. There's not going to be the same pieces. It's not going to be the same Royals team that people have seen for the last couple of years. So understandably so, Hosmer maybe saw what was happening there and didn't really get excited about being a part of that. But you go to San Diego, and it's also one of those things where there's a number of clubs that are in this. It's, okay, we're in a rebuilding mode. We're trying to rebuild. We're trying to get new guys, but how long is it going to take? And clearly he's okay with how long it's going to take, because he got a very nice, lucrative contract of 8 years, $144 million. full no-trade clause for the first 3 seasons, and then limited no-trade protections afterwards, so that's going to be nice. He's going to be paid $20 million in each of the first 5 seasons and $13 million in the 3 remaining years, plus a $5 million signing bonus. He's going to where and Dayton Moore said this as well. He's going with the better contract. He's going with the better deal for him. And I think the Royals, even when they put their offer out there, knew San Diego had the better offer, and that's where he was going to ultimately end up going.
Well, and now we'll get to, I'll throw out the big signings that I like. The first one that I think is the number one signing by any team, Lorenzo Cain to the Brewers, because that was, to me, a little bit of it too is kind of like what you mentioned, Pat, was, they got to move via a trade, but it wasn't a free agent signing when they got Christian Yelich with that. Getting Yelich and Cain makes them a viable competitor, more so than they were last year to the Chicago Cubs, because that's their measuring stick, even within their own division. But I look at some even smaller signings and that I really like. I really like Todd Frazier to the Mets. I mean, part of me was like, okay, it might be a geographical thing too. Hey, I just bought a house in New York. Mets aren't that far from the Yankees, but I really like the Mets going out there and getting Todd Frazier. The big one, though, that I like, and this might be small potatoes, but I like it anyways, the Rockies choosing to say, hey, we're not going to re-sign Greg Holland, who, although he had, 41 saves last year, had an ERA up by the 3.6, and saying, hey, let's go get a guy that the Cubs went and traded for in Wade Davis when they lost Aroldis Chapman, who, he didn't have as many saves. He only had 32, but he had an ERA that was as low as 2.3. So I look at that where it's like, hey, you know what? They're ditching one guy that's 32, trying to bet their money on another guy who had better numbers at the same age. And that's one where I'm like, hey, you know what? And this kind of plays into the Padres thing also, because the Rockies were right above them in the standings. That's one where it's like, hey, you know what? Even the Rockies are getting better as well. One thing I want to throw out to both you and Pat, I'll ask you first. Who hasn't been signed that you think will fall in the near future? Well, obviously they'll fall before the season, but within maybe the next week or two, who's going to be the next domino of the fall?
I would like to say, honestly, I would when I'm looking through the list, I would probably say, if I was looking at a big time guy, it would probably be Mike Moustakas. I think that guy is really good. I think the Yankees could definitely offer him a contract. So I think he would probably be the biggest bat to sign. If I had to go for a smaller guy or a somewhat smaller guy, I would probably go Greg Holland. I think when teams are starting to shape out their bullpens, some guys might get hurt, some guys might not be as great as you think. There's teams going to be like, oh shoot, we need a closer. And I think Greg Holland is probably the best closer on the market right now. So I think you got to go for him when you try to get a closer. So those are probably my 2 things that I would bet on signing. Moustakas is just too good of a player right now to just stay on that market. And I think he will be on a roster by opening day.
And the only thing, Brandon, before you give yours, is the Moustakas thing. The only question I have with it, will one of these pitchers go before Moustakas? Arrieta, Cobb, Lynn. These are guys every single time you and I have talked about, hey, this team needs a pitcher. Well, Jake Arrieta's out there. Is he going to go to the Brewers? Is he going to go to the ALA? Lance Lynn. Well, you didn't get Yu Darvish. You didn't get Jake Arrieta. Here's Lance Lynn. Oh, you didn't get those 3? Here's Alex Cobb. Will one of those guys maybe fall before Mike Moustakas? Because that's the one thing I'm thinking.
Well, and I think it's one of the things that, Pat, you either said it before we came on or right as we were coming on, is that Jake Arrieta is not going to be going anywhere if he continues to try and hold out for a 7 to 8 year deal, that's anywhere near what, any other pitchers have gotten, like the Zach Greinke, the big Zach Greinke signing that the Diamondbacks way overpaid for.
They put him 38, 39 at the end of that contract, by the way.
Jesus.
That's how old he would be, because he's 31 right now.
That's not going to happen for one really, really good year that Arrieta gave you and another pretty decent year that he gave you. That's not going to happen. You cannot get... even though you can get some really good contracts based off of 1 or 2 years, you're not getting that contract. You're not getting that contract based off of 2 years.
I was going to say he had it 1 year too soon. If he would have had the year that he had when we won the wild card game over Pittsburgh, we beat the Cardinals in the DS and then lose to the Mets. If he had that year, the year we won the World Series, and then that World Series number in last year, then I could see him getting a not 7-8 year contract, but I could see him getting a big contract because it's like, oh, well, he's had one really good year and one phenomenal year compared to phenomenal, really good, and then I don't know if this last one was a fluke or if this is the real you, and you're coming down off that heater. You know what I'm saying, guys?
Yeah, well, he's going to have to – I think he's going to have to crack at some point. And, if he really wants to pitch, that's what it comes down to. If it's just about the money, then fine, whatever. But if you really want to pitch, you're going to have to work with a team that really wants you and is willing to pay you good money, just not, uber ridiculous money. But I want to say one more thing before I tell you who I think will sign next is that one of the moves that I liked, and it's from the Mets again, was them going and getting Jason Vargas. And Jason Vargas, I know that, many people won't go, many people will probably go, who's that? But Jason Vargas pitched last year with Kansas City, and in his first half of the season, a 2.22 ERA. I mean, the guy was racking up wins left and right. If the Mets can get first half of last season Jason Vargas for the whole year to add as a fourth, fifth guy in their in their starting rotation, they're going to be very, very happy on a signing that really didn't, break the bank or anything like that. I think Vargas is guaranteed $16 million. That's good money, but nothing crazy, of course. I think that's a really good move, especially since the Mets this past year, every one of their starters was injured. Every single one of them. So to add him as another piece right there, I think that's a really good move on their part. But who do I think would be signed next? I honestly think that it's going to be Greg Holland, because what do teams need? Absolutely need. Cannot win the World Series, cannot make the playoffs without it. It is a bullpen. It's a good, strong bullpen. Even if they're not making Holland their closer, they're making him their setup guy. Teams need depth in their bullpen, especially with the way that some arms are used. They get tired, they get injured. They need depth in their bullpen. That's where I'm looking next, is Greg Holland. Someone's going to go and nab him and put him in their bullpen to ensure that, and it's probably going to be a team that we look at as being a contender this season, because they know, they're smart, that they need to have a good, strong bullpen. And like I said, even if it's not your closer, even if it's one of your setup guys, bringing in Holland is very, very smart at this point in the season.
Here's what I'm thinking. This is what I will end it on before we go around the horn for our final thoughts. Is this free agency the calm before the storm before we get to next year? Because right now, and things can change. I'm looking at spotrac.com right now for who's on the last year of their contract. This can change because teams can offer extensions and stuff, but the names that I'm looking at, Josh Donaldson, Bryce Harper, James Shields to a sense, Adam Wainwright, you've got Victor Martinez, guys like David Murphy, guys like Andrew McCutchen if he doesn't get a deal with the Giants, Manny Machado, Dallas Keuchel. I'm going down the list even further. You've got Craig Kimbrell, you've got Michael Brantley, you've got Ian Kinsler, Yasiel Puig, Andrew Miller. Is this the Asdrubal Cabrera is the other one that I was looking at? Yasmani Grandal. The list goes on. However, is this the calm before the storm? Is this this one was a little slow, 2019's fireworks, and we're seeing guys go left and right? What do you guys think about that? Could this be the calm before the storm between big fireworks in 2019?
I got to be honest, I'm not entirely sure about that now, given the way this offseason has gone. I used to think about that because I would think, next year Harper's in there, Machado's in there. But given how slow this market has gone and all the reasons that people have said why this market has gone this way, either next year's class or the owners are colluding or no one wants to give out more money to these guys, these 30-year-olds who are going to decline over their careers. So as much as I want to think that, I think this might not just be the calm before the storm, but could be a repeat next year after Harper's gone and Machado's gone and Keuchel is signed and all those other guys. And you might see guys like Ian Kinsler be left out or Andrew McCutchen have to take shorter deals to go play on a team next year. I don't think that's going to be the grab up that we're all anticipating. It might be just Harper, Machado, Keuchel, maybe a couple other guys, and that might be it. So I think we could be overhyping this class a little bit too much just because it has a few highlights. No, don't get me wrong, franchise changers truly at the top, but I think it could be a continuation of what's going on this season where teams just don't want to pay like big contracts to 30-year-olds who are going to decline over their careers and are not going to give them back the return on investment that they want.
Well, I think that it's all interesting because I don't think we can sit here and say with any certainty what next year is going to be because we haven't gone through the season. We haven't seen which teams have performed, which teams have not. How many of these guys are going to be on the trading block come,
this year,
trade deadline time in July? That's where I'm always looking at because teams that are competing and just need one more piece to be able to get to the playoffs, to move them over the hump. They're willing to go and sign one of those guys as a rental for the rest of the season. And there are teams who are willing to shed that contract off of their books, take some prospects. If it's better at that point than it is in the off season, which we're finding maybe it is better at the trade deadline time than it is right now, especially according to this off season, maybe you're seeing more of those deals done. Maybe you're seeing bigger, high-profile players being exchanged with teams at the trade deadline than you are in the offseason.
Well, and Patrick, I'll go to you first. What are your final thoughts on this year's free agency and how it's going to shape this upcoming MLB season?
The free agency through the offseason has just been very slow and very boring. When you check Twitter every day hoping for some news and you just realize, oh, wait, Alex Cobb is trending, and you just see, like, oh, here's a reason Alex Cobb would work well, but nothing substantial. So off-season-wise, it's been boring. But I do think that these guys can definitely shape their teams for the better part of the season. Obviously, you have a season to go. Things can happen. Fortunately, injuries can happen. But I do think many of these guys will have an impact on their teams this season.
What about you, B?
Yeah, I think that even though the offseason for the most part it's been kind of slow, and my big spot to go to is MLBTradeRumors.com, and that's that's got trades, that's got signings, that's got everything. And when you're going there each day and it's kind of the same stories from the last 4 weeks, and you're going, yep, already knew that. All right, nothing new. Okay, moving on. But I do like, for the most part, the signings that have happened, like being able to see Lorenzo Cain go over to the Brewers and the push that the Brewers are clearly making with what San Francisco is doing to try and get back into things, going after some veteran guys like McCutchen and like Longoria, seeing what obviously the Yankees have done and then what the Red Sox have countered with, and the Padres. The Padres one to me though is a bit confusing because of the fact that they aren't contending, yet they paid out a huge contract as though they were. So
you're saying confusing on the side of the Padres, not the side of Hosmer?
No, it's very confusing as to why the Padres would. It'd be like the White Sox if they went. They're in a rebuilding mode right now. It would have been like the White Sox if they tried to give trade for Manny Machado and then give him this huge contract. It doesn't quite make sense for your franchise. Hosmer, I think it's a great move for Hosmer. He's going to certainly. But you're the Padres. You're in the middle of a rebuilding. Was that the best move for you at the time? But I think for the most part, it's been some pretty good signings.
And I mean, you are right, because the White Sox, it's not recently, but a little bit before, it's got to be a left-handed power hitter, and you got to be a little bit older than Hosmer right now. You got to be past your prime.
Oh gosh, Kenny Williams. I mean, when he was the
Griffey,
GM,
Manny Ramirez.
At the trade deadline,
Esteban Loaiza was in the news lately.
Yes, he was. Just a little drug trafficker.
I kind of want to see the Sox sign Jake Arrieta just to see how they handle that contract.
I don't think it's the Rick Hahn deal. That's a Kenny Williams deal.
Yeah, that's a Kenny Williams deal. You ask them how much money they would like. You know how much money they're worth, nothing, and you go and you sign them, because that was the White Sox. Every trade deadline under Kenny Williams, they were signing. They were trading for somebody who was out of their prime, but they had a nice name.
Well,
although I do want to say, on a serious note, I just found this out today that we're talking about our next year's free agent class. Guess who would have been a free agent next year?
Oh,
Jose Fernandez.
Oh,
he would have been a free agent next year.
That
he was sold.
That was one, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I've told Brandon this before. I don't know if anyone out there watching us right now, and Pat, I don't even know if you know this, but the freakiest thing about that whole situation was, this was back when Mike Rankin used to be a part of MVP, and me and him were on a live stream at like 1 o'clock in the morning, just playing some Overwatch. And Mike Rankin goes, and we get on a huge discussion of how good will the Cubs be if they can get him, Fernandez. If they can go ahead and get him, how great would the rotation be? We end the live stream about 2 hours later. We go to bed, we wake up, and then we hear the news. And it's like, holy crap, we were probably talking about it as it happened. And that to me was the most freakish thing of anything, and it popped into my head as soon as you brought that up. But this is where you guys come in, bringing it on a happier note, coming back up. You guys let us know.
Sorry, guys.
It's a slow free agent season. Like I'm a guy that likes wheels and deals. Like I love Derek Jeter. You get an all-star. You get an all-star. You get a good player. You get a good player. Hey, Starlin Castro, you get to stay put. We're not going to trade you.
I do want to say really quickly that Dan Straley, one of the pitchers for the Marlins, I don't know if you guys saw this. He said he's happy that Stanton and he's happy that Yelich were traded.
Yeah, I mean, who else would want to play in Miami? I'm sorry, Marlins fans, but it's true. You guys aren't the Florida Marlins.
They don't matter.
You're the Miami Marlins. The Florida Marlins could at least beat the Cubs in the NLCS and then go on and win the World Series. I mean,
I'm just saying, I think that's really interesting. I mean, not that Dan Straley's a big name by any means, but to say that two bigger names are gone and away from the team, it makes you think, ooh, were they going to be a little toxic there, or were they getting toxic there? I mean, I think that Stanton, most likely, yes, and Yelich, he definitely didn't want to be there anymore. So it's interesting. I think things down in Miami aren't as bad as people try to make it seem.
Well, this is where
he could be in the Cubs system. He came over in the Addison Russell deal.
You're telling Yelich?
No, Straley.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, we used to have Christian Yelich. Do not tell me that.
Christian Yelich, I would be so pissed.
Do not tell me we got rid of Christian Yelich. But we're finally going to end it. This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below about your favorite signing, your most questioned signing, and what have you thought about the MLB free agency this season. Let us know down below in the comment section. Also, thank you for watching our baseball segment. Housekeeping at the end. Check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. That's how you get to be like Pat. Got to thank Pat for jumping on yet again for the month of February. If you want a t-shirt, go to the store link down below in the description. Mostvaluablepodcast.com. That's where you get all your MVP needs. And then last but not least, go ahead and give all the MVP podcasts a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and or iTunes. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, have a good day, everybody.